I'm in the studio here. We're going to be talking about build to rent, the horizontal apartments we have in the studio with us, Todd Wood. Now, before I bring him on the stage, what I'd like to do is just share a few words about Todd so we can get into the conversation, because I know we've got a lot of great questions for him. Todd is the CEO of Christopher Todd Communities. They are a leader in the build to rent industry. Now, Christopher Todd Communities was launched in 2016 as an early innovator, what was now known or grown into one of the hottest real estate segments in the country. This is disrupting the traditional multifamily industry model, right? So Christopher Todd Communities creates what they call single-story rental communities with a 5-star lifestyle, which is the luxury category within the build-to-rent niche. So these are single-family smart homes with private, pet-friendly backyards combined with resort-style amenities, all in a gated, professionally managed community. These are armed with strategic partnerships with America's most trusted home builder. This is Taylor Morrison. These two companies collaborated to bring this new innovative concept to new markets. One of the things that we're going to spend time with them is a lot on the collision between technology, the customer experience, and this new way that we know many years customers always wanted to move into single-family homes. They've exited our market to live, but now they don't have to actually purchase it. So Todd, welcome in.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So a lot of questions around this conversation with build to rent. I want to just, on the onset, just kind of hear from you, like, what does it mean to you and how should we be looking at this?
Build to rent. Build to rent is this big, broad brush of many, many different products. And so everybody's kind of just adapted that universal term of I'm building something, it's for rent, so it's a build to rent.
Right.
And so what we've done is we've tried to look at, we've got now categorized almost over 30 different products in the build to rent segment that are happening today. And our product just happens to be what we refer to as the SRC, which is single story rental communities. And you articulately described what we do, so that was very fine, thank you. And one of the things that as we look at that build to rent industry, why did it happen? When did it happen? And what's driving it? And so those are all of the different matrix that we always are trying to discover, look at. There's not a lot of data from 6 years ago, but it's what's driving it forward today and in the future.
Now, you did this far before there were talks like what we're doing here, okay? And so what, you said why, when, and what's driving it. So what inspired you to take this on? Because you kind of pioneered a lot of these communities. And of course, in this market here in Phoenix, a lot of people are looking at Phoenix and seeing what's happening here. So.
Yeah, great question, thank you. I'd just come off of a sell of a food industry product or a company and was trying to say, okay, how can I get back into my roots in real estate? And when I went out and started looking at either building or developing or doing something in real estate, everything looked the same.
Right.
Whether it's a multifamily, big box, whether it's a house, it's 3-bedroom, 2-car garage, two bathrooms, 2-car garage, everything just looked the same. Now, I had a bread business, so I used to tell everybody, everything just kind of looks like white bread.
Yeah.
Nothing was unique. Nothing was different. We stumbled across this small little product that was coming up out of Tucson, and it was a small, detached, single-story home that people could live in. It had a backyard, and there were waiting lists of individuals trying to get into this community. And I thought, this is unique. It's distinct. It's different. And I could understand that. So as entrepreneurs, we love to take risks. We are very visionary. We do not live in the middle of the road. We're always on the peripheral.
Right.
And I said, I can take a risk on this because I think this has a lot of legs underneath it. What it does is it has inherent characteristics that has not been available to the consumer before.
Right.
For example, if you take traditional multifamily, whether it's a 3-story garden style or a large apartment complex, the number one complaint in multifamily living is noise.
Yeah.
It's noise. It's acoustics. People above, below, to the side. And this is a product that's single story. Nobody lives to the side, below, above, and so it's quiet. The other thing is that they have a private backyard. So now all of a sudden you have this home space that nobody's ever had before. In all of our homes, we put doggy doors.
Right. There was a time when pets were, I mean, there's been a nice movement of pets entering into multifamily, and even the pet rent. I mean, just even the way that pets are paying rent, but
Pets are paying rent.
the importance of that, even with the pandemic, I got to imagine that serves right into your product type, knowing that pets are even more of a integrated family member to these renters.
As you look at the demographics, we have about 60% of the individuals that live in our communities are under the age of 30. So for them, pets are their new children. That's what they love, their pets. We have anywhere from 60 to 80% of the residents that live in our communities own a pet. It's important to them. We now have service pets or service animals.
So you're building for all the customers.
We are. Yeah, so we're very extremely pet friendly. But that's, once again, that's an inherent characteristic of a home and a rental home that they can't get in a multifamily environment.
Can we take a moment here? I want to run a little time lapse that we have of what one of these communities look like coming together.
Yeah, sure.
Can we look at that?
Certainly.
Can we run this? So cool to see that come together like that. I wrote down a few things like 10 to 12 foot ceilings. You can't do that in regular multifamily.
Not normally. They're normally traditionally about 8 to 9 foot ceilings in a multifamily environment because they're going vertical. Correct.
Wow. It's pretty interesting to see. So tell me a little bit about the segments you mentioned earlier. You fit into, there's like 30 different segments. Talk to me about why you were focused in your segment, I guess, and what's different about it.
Great question. We looked at all the different segments that are out there. Probably the largest is the single family rental, SFR. Some of them are scattered. A lot of them are now more planned developments. And so they can be, aggregated into one. As we sat and looked at, I'm a businessman myself, so as I'm sitting there looking at returns and the cost of the product, the cost of the return, what kind of rent rates can I get out of a product such as this? To us, it just made a lot of sense what we were doing and what we were building. It seemed the most efficient, the most cost efficient from a processing standpoint as well. And when we were looking at, as we started adding additional revenues to the rents, there were areas that we felt that we could go in and add to our product that could supplement and add additional revenue to an owner. So we started just attaching all of these different segments onto our product. So our product gave us a lot of versatility and flexibility that sometimes you can't get in a traditional multifamily, or you cannot get in a single family rental.
Yeah. Can we talk about the resident? Like who's leaning into this for what you've done? Because it sounds like, I mean, putting together the partnership or partnership alliance, I don't know how it's structured with Taylor Morrison being that, from a quality standpoint, being one of America's most trusted home builders. I mean, I got to imagine that is useful in the momentum that needs to be created for all of the success you're creating here. But can we talk more about the customers and the ones that are going down this path?
Sure. So it's interesting to watch as this new product, which is it's a revolutionary new product, a new segment coming to the market. Who's accepting it, who's adapting, and who's really embracing it. So we really kind of have two large groups. One is the millennial group, and the other is the baby boomer. The millennials embrace it because they like technology. We can talk about technology later, but our homes are full of high technology, techie stuff, and they just love that.
But this conversation is driving that technology decision, the expectations of this customer, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we try to get into their psychographic of what's important to you, what touch points in the technology piece is important to you, and we can, and then we pull that into that living environment and experience that they have. The other is a baby boomer. A baby boomer has either sold their home or lost their home back in 2008 or 9, and they don't want to live in a home. They don't want to have yard work on the weekend.
Right.
They want a maintenance-free environment. If a light bulb goes out, they can just make a phone call and they can come in and replace the light bulb.
And historically, they've wanted that as well and had to go to multifamily, but had to make an adjustment to the product type.
Correct. That's exactly right. Yeah. So they feel like I can live in this resort-style living. Everything's maintenance-free. It's a lock and leave. I can just get up and go visit my grandkids whenever I want. Everything's taken care of for me. I don't have to worry about a thing. And then they come back. So the boomers really embrace it. They really enjoy it.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned you're an entrepreneur, you take the risks, but I also am inspired by how you sort of discovered this opportunity in that, historically we've been an investment-driven business. The customer's obviously the investor, and if you figure out the employee customer, then you'll meet the resident customer. But a lot of times you're looking at land in scarce scenarios, and it's like, how do I get as many units on here as possible and build it high, all that stuff, because the ROI, the pro formas, and sort of those Excel spreadsheets and those analysis were driving those decisions. And so the next follow-up to that is like, how many, and I'm asking a question here, Crystal is asking, how many units, we call them units? Homes?
Sure.
There we go.
Yeah.
How many homes can we get on I guess it depends on the site, but how many homes can you get in a typical site?
Sure. Well, we'll do some comparisons so we can benchmark, but you go to a traditional multifamily, they're going to be anywhere from 20 to 30 units per acre. And we're going to get about 11 to 12 per acre. So we need 2 to 3 times the land mass to build one of these communities. They can use less land and they can go vertical. For us to get the same amount of units, we have to have a large, horizontal footprint, and so, that's a big requirement. And that's something that, it scares everybody away from. Oh, I can't buy that much land and dedicate that much land to multifamily. Right. It doesn't make sense.
Right. And I imagine they're more not friendlier, but more. Building single-family homes and apartments, the conversations and even in the entitlement process change a little bit as well. So I think that, that all comes back down to the investor and what their outcomes are, right? I mean, getting to the numbers, what they charge for rent. Do you find the customers, I guess we don't know long enough years into this, but they would maybe stay longer and you have more of a long-term focus on maybe a portfolio like that?
That's a great question. Because of the demographics that we have, a lot of them are a longer staying resident. They get into this and they see boy, if I move, where am I going to move to?
Yeah.
If I don't buy a home, which is still the American dream, and we're so grateful that we're teamed up with Taylor Morrison, America's most trusted builder, that they can move into a new home. But if they can't, then we have something that's almost just as good. And they can live in a home environment, home experience, private backyard, and have all of that. So why go anywhere else?
Yeah, it comes to mind just the sharing economy and, the word ownership. There's some conversations around this, like access is the new ownership. Like right now, if I had to move all of our studio equipment out, I could access a Tahoe, and go do it. I don't need to own the truck anymore, right? I could just access it when I need it, when I want it, and that creates a unique experience on life. So it's interesting to track the consumer expectations, and yeah, I mean maybe they're making more money in some other investment. And accessing the home and enjoying it for what they want without the commitment of a 30-year mortgage, or without the maintenance or all that sort of uncertainty that goes with that. What I'd like to do is, we've got a little video. You mentioned some of the finishes and things like that. I'd like to kind of take a little video look tour of what one of these communities look like completely finished, because we saw the time lapse already. So let's take a look.
Okay. Yeah,
all right.
Thank you.
Let's have a look. I'm sold. I'll tell you, do you get involved early with the architectural stuff or the design, or is that like what Taylor Morrison does, or how do you end up with the
It's a blend of
elevation?
both of our ideas and our collective intelligence is that we come together and we've created this brand experience. And then of course we are so lucky to be with Taylor Morrison and to have them come with their building expertise. And it's just been a great partnership. It's really a partnership from heaven. It's really been wonderful.
Right. I know that in order to get those situations arranged, you have to, there's a lot that goes, there's years of things that go into the trust and credibility and just knowing values and being focused on the right things. Because I'm sure they're very careful about, how everything moves forward. I do have a question here in terms of single family, in terms of how you underwrite and consider the portfolios. Do you underwrite based off of single family rental market in combination with multifamily, or how do you look at the numbers?
Well, that's a loaded question.
Yeah.
So I'd like to go back and address one of your comments you made about municipalities.
Yeah.
You know, because how do municipalities look at this? Because it's different. When you walk into a municipality, you say, well, this is a multifamily product, but it's homes. And they're looking at it, and it's a head scratcher for them. They don't know how to zone it, you know, what ordinances apply. And they keep saying, well, let's see, you have a professional management team, so that's multifamily, but they're really individual homes, so it's home ordinances. And so that's a real education process. And sometimes it's longer than we want with municipalities. And so that's probably some of our greatest barriers, is educating those municipalities of what this new product is. They don't know. Now, Phoenix is far enough along that many of the municipalities, since they've seen this such a rage.
It's like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have gone out and they have created new ordinances and zoning requirements for single-story rental communities, for these detached homes. So they have their own zoning requirements just for this product, which they've been able to do.
Right.
But getting back to the underwriting question.
You're getting more yes votes from
From the municipalities?
Just neighbors and communities. And
Yeah. We had, just to give an example, once a municipality in a city understands what this is, they don't want to go back to really anything else. I'll give you two quick stories. We had a municipality here in Phoenix, Arizona, where they have a large corridor along some major freeways, and everything was zoned multifamily. And if you looked at the amount of land, they were probably going to put up 3,000 or 4,000 apartment complexes or buildings, units. And they came in and said, you know what, we want this single-story rental type product. And so it's now all single-story rental community in there. It's about 1,100 units, which will end up being there. But they requested, some people would come and say, oh, I've got my big box. No, we don't want that. Can you build this? If you can't we want somebody that will build this product for us.
Wow.
So municipalities are speaking up. We had another area out in the west end of Phoenix where there was one small last parcel of land inside a planned development. It was really an upscale development, and it was a multifamily. It was hard zoned. And there had been 8 other multifamily developers that had gone in and tried to build apartments, and they just got run out by the neighbors. No way are we going to let that be in our backyard.
Right.
So we came in, we worked with the neighbors, we showed them what it was. It's a high quality of renter, it's a very blue collar. And after that, all of the neighborhoods just said, this is the best thing that ever happened to our planned development. We love it.
Wow.
If we only knew.
Right. Think differently, right?
Yeah.
Why do you think it's important for people to understand the impact of these types of moves as investors think through all the options that they have? I mean, if you're mentioning like an apartment being 30 units an acre, 22 units an acre, whatever that is, it's more than 11 to 12 an acre. Can you get there with just shifting return expectations, or what?
We've found that returns are as good or better than even in the multifamily. There are some costs that multifamilies incur that we don't incur, so sometimes our cost of build, I'm just speaking from a developer standpoint.
Sure.
But from a buyer's perspective, they look at number of units, what the cost is, and what the rent rates are, plus any ancillary income, which we do a lot of. I was telling you about add-on ancillary incomes to that. So by the time you add on higher rent rates, which traditionally these products, if it were just to go up to a Class A single-story rental community to a Class A apartment complex, we might be anywhere from 15 to 25% higher in rent rates, just because we deliver a product that they can't get across the street.
And you're not seeing any resistance to it?
No. People would say, you mean for an extra $100 or $150, I can not have anybody above me, below me, I have my own backyard. It's really an easy decision for them to make. Right.
Yeah, and it's a newer property. And
right.
Definitely give some options. Do you guys do any of the, do you allow or do you do any of the sort of shared rentals, or is it, do you guys do all the management, or how do you manage your portfolios?
Great question, yeah. What we do is we go out to a third-party management company, and we'll hire them, where they'll come in just like John's company that you had just before,
Sure.
and they'll come in and they will professionally manage our properties for us. So we do not manage our own properties. We do not self-manage. It's all done by third party.
Okay. And so let's talk about that a little bit, because the third parties that you're hiring to manage, maybe they haven't managed this before, right? Is there a framework in like the thinking process of what you look through or look for in designing this relationship with the property manager?
Yeah. You know, one of the things is when you've got these third-party property management groups all across the country, whether they be national or they be regional. And most all of them, what they've ever done is just apartments their whole life.
Yeah. And they steer away from the single family because you're so many different individual owners.
Yeah. They look at when they first heard of the single family rental communities, they tied it into, it's like a single family rental. It's just this scattered plot, or it's combined and aggregated. They just
portfolios of single family homes.
Right. Yeah. They just didn't understand it. So when we go into them and we say, okay, these are homes, they're not apartments. Can you adapt to that? And they're all eager to adapt to it. But we've found that there's a lot of change in the future that needs to occur, in language, in contracts.
Is there a leasing office on property?
Oh, there is a leasing office on the property. And there's always, some professional individuals on staff. There's a professional maintenance individual on staff. But, one of the things that we look for in property management is somebody that can come in and be flexible with our product, adapt to the vernacular that our product, provides to the resident and to, the marketplace, and can really adapt and provide different data points that we look at versus a traditional multifamily apartment, resident.
Right.
Because ours is it's just a different product.
Sure.
Some are spots and some are stripes, and they can't all just, everything's spots. No, it's not. And so that's what we're looking for, somebody that can adapt to our product.
Yeah. And does that look like, the reporting, the research before you go in? Do you work with them before you go into a market? Or is it you already identify the market and you're bringing them in after? Because it's like, who would go find the data that you need to make an investment decision?
Yeah, right. Well, first of all, they don't know, these property management groups, because they deal in apartments all their lives.
Yeah.
So they don't know what to really go look for. So based upon our experience and what we've learned over the number of years, we go in and privately, we'll go in and find the individuals that can pull the data that we want to look for, and to make an educated decision on that certain site. Will that work? So that's how we do that.
That's great. I look at I'm trying to piece together all the different components that need to come together for this to be a success. And partners, you were able to put the Taylor Morrison deal together. Is that are you looking for partners in that aspect, or how do you move this? Are you moving it across the country? Where are you taking all of this? Is it just in Phoenix?
Yeah. Right now with Taylor Morrison, we've been able to open up in Phoenix and Dallas and Houston and Austin and all in Florida and the Carolinas and different. And if you look at the Taylor Morrison footprint, they plan in the future to have this build-to-rent product, Christopher Todd, throughout all their footprint, which is in the Smile States. So anybody can just get on there and see. So we've got a much bigger, longer runway in front of us to get to that point and to get to those volumes. One of the things that is interesting to watch is, I'll never forget back in about 2019, we had about 8 projects going here just in Phoenix, because we put them all up once. We knew it was going to be a a success. And first of all, we just want to let you know, we feel like we've been very blessed through all of this. And we were looking, and I probably had 40 or 50 investors all over the country, whether it's Seattle or New York or Atlanta or wherever it might be, and they were just saying, hey, we want to build that product here. Mm-hmm. And I was on an airplane flying all around visiting all these wonderful investors, and about the second question out of their mouth was, now who's going to build this for me in Nashville? And I would kind of dance around that question. I said, I don't know. We'll find a local builder. Don't worry about it. The important thing is that we have the product, we have the brand, and we have the awareness and the playbook, and we can do this. And that was a question I could never answer. Who's going to execute? Mm-hmm. And that is the biggest challenge for any developer investor today. It's really great and it's really wonderful, but who's going to go out and actually do it? Mm-hmm. Because right now there's a labor shortage, there's a supply chain shortage, mm-hmm. and so we felt very lucky and very blessed that we were able to team up with Taylor Morrison, who has this big machine mm-hmm. across the country that they can say, we can do that. Mm-hmm. We can build literally hundreds of these for buyers.
What would you say in your early days of entrepreneurship? You mentioned the bread company, and that prepared you to move through this new product and this new innovation, because this is product innovation, right? I mean, in real estate, I look at the vehicle, probably the vehicle you drove in today is, in 30 years, it's evolved quite a bit. Like, I remember when I was in high school, your cars just didn't work. They never had great sound systems. The customers would go to other places to get sound systems, aftermarket programs and equipment. And now you see, like, in every vehicle, like every car sounds like the sound system is. You would never take it out. It sounds too good. You got JBL in there, or Bose, or whatever the brand is. And there's been a collision between technology and like the product, because the customers, you mentioned technology, this is happening. But I look at the evolution of what happened with the automobile the safety, the airbags, they're driving themselves. Elon Musk is talking about there's not even going to be a steering wheel and all these things. And when you look at real estate, other than the four walls we've been in, there hasn't been much innovation, around that. And we spend, most of our day in a building, either in an office, we're in a studio right now, or in a home, right. and it just hasn't been a focus. And maybe it's because there's been so much success and there hasn't been a requirement to change. But what has prepared you to inspire that change, to bring forward a product that isn't, nobody asked for that, right? Like, you just went out and took the risk and did it. So what in the background as an investor made that more probable, I guess?
Yeah. Well, you get into my strengths and my weaknesses. One of my strengths is that I'm always very driven to not just be mediocre. I worked for Xerox for 10 years at one time early in my career, and I watched how through budgets and they used to call it and compensation plans, they would present what we refer to as the glass ceiling, where you'd shoot for the stars to hit this ceiling, mm-hmm. because that's, in reality, that's as far as you're going to go.
Right. And
so that breeds mediocrity. And I struggled in that environment because I wanted just to spread my wings and go out and, do as much and make it as big as it could be. So I remember when we were in the food industry and we made organic breads. Mm-hmm. And we started making organic breads far before they were popular, or organic food was even popular, because I was just making regular breads. Mm-hmm. Everybody could make bread, but can you do something different? What's unique and what's different about a bread, or mm-hmm. a car, or a home? And we took the risk. That's what entrepreneurs do. We have vision. We see something that seems extraordinary to us. We stay with it. We make lots of mistakes along the way. We learn. And all of a sudden, what happens one day is that outlier of a product, this little organic bread, all of a sudden is in every single market, in every single grocery store. It's taking away shelf space from the large bread manufacturers of the world.
Right.
And now it becomes mainstream. It's now a mainstream product. And that's what happened to us. And one of the large companies came in and just bought us. And their comment was, we as sometimes publicly held companies, we can't be that innovative. We just can't do that. We're big machines. We have to give a return to our investors. But you little people, you guys go out and create all of this, you know, ingenuity and technology or whatever, a different product. So when I was out trying to get into the real estate market and everything looked like white bread.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Everything was the same to me. And that's why I thought, I can make something different. I can make something unique. I get it. I've been there before. You know, that food industry prepared me for this moment. I thought, when we started that back in 2016, I thought, you know, I'll bet this will take 7 to 8 years before the market really gets it, before it becomes mainstream.
Right.
That was our guesstimation at that time. And it only took about 3 or 4.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating to watch, and the momentum's only getting stronger, right? And then there's these, you mentioned 30 different ways to do it. Where do you see, and maybe you can't make these predictions now, but where do you see it going from here? I mean, do you think the quarter to quarter companies, like you mentioned, you know, rush and do and I don't know, squeeze them closer, or try and innovate it in different ways? Like, where do you take it from here?
Well, first of all,
maybe too early to tell.
No. First of all, we're real excited that we're with one of these big companies.
Yeah.
We can be the innovators and the creators of something that's new that we can bring to the market, and we can work with them, and they can provide it, and they can bring it to the market quickly. So, really, kudos to like a Taylor Morrison, a Cheryl Palmer that has a vision that says we can do things different and be better and deliver better product to the consumer. You know, that's wonderful vision. It's wonderful to the, you know, to all of their stockholders and their investors. So they should be very comfortable with a leader like that.
Just forget the conversation of do you want to rent or buy. It doesn't even matter anymore.
Right. It's just we're going to provide the most sophisticated, innovative technology shelter over your head as possible, whether you buy it or whether you rent it. That's what Taylor Morrison and Christopher Todd are going to be able to provide to America.
Yeah. Let's talk about that technology a little more. How do you think about it? You know, you're talking about the approach you took with bread. And what's driving those decisions you're making, right? And what's the experience these customers are getting when they move into one of your communities?
Yeah, great question. It really gets into what is the resident experience. What is that experience? I think it was Steve Jobs that used to always say that there's all kinds of computer companies that build computers, but we want to build customer experience, and then we'll build the product around it. And so that's what we really strive hard to do at Christopher Todd is we look at that customer, every single touch point, from when they pick up the phone or just look at the website, all the way through to when they're there, they first come in, and when they leave.
Right.
You know, did they have the very best experience possible? And did our brand embrace them and touch them and give them what they needed? So we really strive hard to get inside of that. And with that, 60% of our demographic being under the age of 30, they grew up with technology.
Right.
It's part of their life. Now the boomers, I mean, my dad, he'd said, I still want my flip phone back. Give me that. You know, that's still what he desires.
Comfortable with it?
Yeah. But so you have this huge group that's grown up with technology. They're expecting it. They want it. And they go into a multifamily environment, and it's just the same old. and they come into a Christopher Todd, you know, and they have voice activation that can just control the entire house. When the lights go on, when the TV goes off, they can set the alarm system, they can lock the front door. Everything's programmable, whether it be voice or through an app. They can be at their work, and if they want to look at their pet, they can just pull up the little, you know, camera that they have on top of their refrigerator, and it shows down, and it shows Fluffy, you know, all asleep, and just, oh good, I feel comfortable, I can continue to work today.
Yeah.
So they want that, they expect it, and so we're getting inside of that. We feel like that is probably one of our strongest attributes in our homes is the technology, and that will continue to be.
Yeah, I know that, and I think it was John, he said like less than 2% of multifamily have adopted to the smart home, and a lot of that is related to cost at some point because they're not in development. You kind of run into the good benefit of, well, you're building it, you might as well, you know, you're already going down the road with some of these elements. It's easier when the walls are open.
You know, most developers, when they get into how much does it cost to put technology into their product, they shy away from it.
So there's still that missed opportunity, but yeah, and you guys are not.
We will invest in the money because we think it's a good investment at this time.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's just thinking about the person moving in because you're going to maintain it, whereas instead of just here we're out for the return and we're moving on. So you're keeping the customer and protecting the brand integrity of all those things.
Yeah, when a Christopher Todd is built and it's under the brand and then it's sold to a second generation, the brand stays. And the brand standard stays and the requirements. And our brand standards are quite high that the owner really has to provide the resident with. Every year they go out and they receive an audit, you know, on how they're doing with our brand standards. And if they don't perform, then, you know, they could be in jeopardy of losing the brand. Very similar to the hospitality industry. You know, I've always said we really want to be the Marriott of multifamily. That's really our goal.
Yeah. And what excites you now? I mean, you've taken this on. You thought it was going to be 7-8 years. It's taken on a little quicker than that. What are you excited about now?
That's a great question. Well, it's not living on Mars. I'll tell you that. That does not excite me like Musk does.
Yeah.
I think what really gets me excited in the morning is being one of our mission statement is creating innovative technologies that enrich people's lives. And if we can continue to do that across America, is delivering these innovative communities that enrich people's lives, that's what gets me excited. It's just not another box that they live in, but it's something, an experience that they can enjoy and find comfort and safety and peace.
Yeah.
And that's what gets me excited. Is last week I was just in Tampa, and we were at a groundbreaking ceremony with Taylor Morrison. It was a beautiful experience to see this starting just to move across the country, and that we're going to be able to do that. Now, as we grow with this product, I'm sure we'll have you know, different types of products that we might latch onto, along with just, you know, single-story rental communities. Some of our products might look different because they're smaller pieces of land, or larger pieces of land, and so we'll have maybe different products that might adapt to that.
Right.
Still all under the Christopher Todd brand name.
Yeah, we have Jill here who made a comment here. She says, just moved back east after living at a Christopher Todd community in Surprise, Arizona. We had an amazing experience, so thank you.
Oh, thank you, Jill. Thank you for that.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. What are people like? Take me into these sort of boardrooms or conversations with the operators, the third-party management companies that are taking care of the property management for you. What goes on in their mind, I guess, on the onset when they hear about this portfolio?
Yeah, great question. I think the first thing that goes on is, we have our processes and systems in place, and we'll just plug it into those, and it'll just march
How
forward.
does that work?
How's that work?
Yeah.
It works pretty good. It's getting better.
Yeah.
Let's just say that. It's getting better. And, I really refer to that, it's a science and an art. I mean, there's really two pieces. The science is, all the the meetings that we have, and all the spreadsheets that you have, and everything that is communicated on paper or virtually to a resident. I mean, that's all science. And so you can sit in an office, and everybody likes to sit in that office and look at that Excel spreadsheet and try to make decisions. But the artfulness of it, and I think every property management would tell you this, is through the experience, is when they have one of their associates sitting in an office, and somebody walks into a Christopher Todd and says, "What is this? Tell me about it." And they proceed forward, and they give them this experience that they've never had before, and it's just unbelievable. It's surreal to a resident. It's really fascinating. And that connection, person-to-person connection, that's really high on our playbook, is making sure that that associate is professionally experienced and taught and trained in the Christopher way of doing things and speaking and talking and using the same language. Usually when we bring on a property management group, it takes about 60 days for them to stop saying apartments.
Right.
These are homes.
Units, apartments.
Yeah, these are homes. But it takes that while before because that's what they've grown up, that's their DNA.
Right.
So those are all the things that we're working with them.
Yeah, I love, you mentioned Steve Jobs earlier, and was it 2001 he introduced the iPad, which I now have here on my desk here. There was the big battle of, Microsoft and Apple, like which was going to be on your desktop computers. And it was like, when he introduced that product, I think he asked the question, do we really have more time for another screen in our lives? And he got someone to think, right? But he created a whole new category, which was this iPad. Now, at that time, I imagine he didn't understand that it would be a transactional device, like people would do inspections for properties on them, or you'd go to the bagel store and it's a point of sale device. And I think at that time he just saw it as like pictures and emails and things like that, or listening to the news. But what was fascinating was that he didn't have to compete with, this computer, either one of them. He created a whole new category, and people saw it truly as what it was. Although you could do the same things probably on both of those devices. And then people now are putting keyboards in them like, wait, you're making it a computer. But have you thought through like the conversations and marketing and those things that are necessary in the category design? As customers come in and they're still saying, no, it's not a computer. This is an iPad. You can take it anywhere. Or have you thought through a lot of those experiences about what's next? As every person that wakes up in America, they define renting differently.
Well, we've thought and are still thinking.
Yes.
And I'm sure that when Jobs invented this, he didn't really understand all the different applications that it would be used for. They didn't know what they had. 6 years ago, when we built this, did we know what we had? I don't think we did. But we've been learning over the years. One of the things that we really strive to do is do a lot of surveying with our residents. How's your experience? What did you like? What didn't you like? What would you want different? What would you want more? And so we're really trying to get into their psychics of understanding what they want and they need and desire. Now, we've been able to take a lot of that feedback, give it to our partner. So, it's version 2, 3, and 4 as we start to roll these things out, that it'll just be a better product. It'll be we'll just meet far more the demands of what that consumer is asking for.
Yeah. Well, I love where this conversation is going. The more time I spend with you, the more impact you can see that you've put. It goes beyond numbers, what you're trying to do here, and you're impacting communities and people that are living within these homes. So it's exciting to hear. Are there questions I should be asking that I'm not asking you? Can you think about something like that?
You've asked a lot of great questions today. One of the things that, if there was a financial question that was asked previous about underwriting and we really never touched it, that is a question that most developers and buyers, and whether you're building it or you're buying the product, they'll go through that experience. Most of it's a multifamily experience in the underwriting process. But, I don't want to get into all the different financial variables and indexes that, happen with these products. I think one of our biggest challenges that we would love to, invite your guests is that we have a really big appetite for this product across the country. And we would love to buy more land. We would just, if they're land brokers or whatever, this is just a little solicitation. But if there's anybody out there that could help us with that process, we, in all of our open divisions, that we would love to have that. And but it's big and it's long and it's wide. So we're always looking. We've got a big line of credit. We're trying to buy as much land as we can and to put in the pipeline and really to get that moving.
Yeah.
So we're always trying to develop those type of relationships with land brokers. From a financial piece, I know that Taylor Morrison they're always open to any type of conversation when it comes to creativeness and low cost to funds. I can't speak for them, but I know I hear those discussions that happen. And we're also looking for partnerships in the way of materials or vendors from a national perspective.
Okay.
That we can just roll something out, whether it's from Seattle all the way to Sarasota, Florida.
Right.
We can just roll it out across the country. And do they have that type of infrastructure to support that type of volume? So, good question. Thanks for asking that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Jeff says CTC is several years ahead of the developers of build to rent. So he's asking the question, how did you come up with the idea? I know we talked about it early about the bread company and your inspiration to start it, but yeah, a lot of good feedback.
Well, thank you.
The brand is strong.
Well, thank you. I'll just tell you a really quick story. When we were in the organic bread business, if anybody out there eats organic bread, our brand was called Alpine Valley Bread. We were based in Mesa, Arizona, and I think at one time we were probably the largest organic bread manufacturer in the world. I mean, we were shipping bread internationally. And there was this little company out of Oregon called Dave's Killer Bread. And Dave's Killer Bread was owned by a hippie, and we didn't pay much attention to him. And some people came in and invested in the company, and they were smart. And the first thing they did was, we are going to develop a really strong brand. And so they went on to develop this Dave's Killer Bread brand. And I remember at one time, our sales were here and Dave's was here, and one year Dave's just shot right past us. And I shook my head, I said, where did they come from?
Right.
How did that happen? And we've been in the marketplace so much longer than they have, and they're more accepted, their sales are higher, and we have similar products.
Right.
And the main difference was they had a much more recognizable brand. Their brand was just excellent. And we were focused on operations. We were focused on building, producing, logistics, where they were focused on, the image and the branding and what all went into that. So I always felt like if I ever got a second bite of the apple, if I ever do anything else over, after this bread experience, I'm going to make sure it's done right and that it gets branded. So that's what we're trying to achieve.
That's great. Yeah, a brand that someone can trust makes sales easy.
Yes.
Conversion is easy when you're when you're trusted. That's been awesome. We're coming up at the end of our session here. I would love to continue to track and follow all the projects you're building here in the Valley and then also across the nation here. Any final thoughts you want to leave our viewers with before we wrap?
Well, first of all, thank you for letting me come on and be a part of that. And thank you all for tuning in. I mean, it's been an honor and a privilege to be with you this afternoon. And I hope you find some value or you got something out of our conversation. And I look forward, if any of you are ever out in an area and you recognize, please come up and say hello. I'd love to meet you. So anyway, thank you.
That's awesome. Well, appreciate you coming in. This has been great.